was first invited to write a monograph or compile an edited collection on the theme of tourism and Brexit, I couldn't at first imagine what such a book would look like, given that we'd only recently just had the vote to leave the EU and the UK was actually still a member of the EU. So I asked myself, how could the relationship between the activities that make tourism such an important sector of the global economy and the national economies of many countries, and something that had not yet happened, be understood? Tourism and Brexit, Travel, Borders and Identity, which is the collection of essays that emerged from this thinking, is written by academics from around the world, and it brings into focus the relationship between tourism and Brexit and the socio-cultural worlds from which they both are derived. Brexit means different things to different people, but most often refers to the UK's departure from the EU. The whys and wherefores of Brexit are complicated, as the political wrangling that followed the UK referendum in 2016 showed. The country officially left the EU on the 31st of January 2020 and was followed by a transition period which ended on the 31st of December 2020. But if we put aside the complexities of the UK's withdrawal from the EU, Brexit is more than a simple decision to leave the European Union, because it draws attention to issues of identity, it draws attention to where borders lie and who has the right to traverse them. So part of the success of any tourism activity, but particularly an international tourism activity, is premised on the ability to move physically across space. So borders play a key role, whether that be crossing the threshold of our own homes to the crossing of an international boundary. The easier these borders are to traverse, the more likely it is that they will be. Barriers to crossing international borders can include the need to apply for a visa, provide evidence of funds to support a stay, as well as restrictions on length of stay. But tourism is not just about business practices, it's a very human activity, because without people there would be no tourism. So touristic practice is a lens by which we can study and understand actions and dispositions, thoughts and feelings. So the crossing of borders, but especially international borders, draws attention to ideas and articulation of self-identity, with questions around who has a right to enter and exit another country, and therefore who belongs and who does not. That's especially so when we're crossing borders that are not free-flowing, because as I've already suggested of the need for visas and or paperwork that accompanies the import and export of commodities or the movement of people. With the UK's departure from the EU and the freedom of movement between the two entities ending, this of course has ramifications for touristic travel, for the tourists, but also for people who live and work in tourism destinations. The full implications for tourism because of the UK leaving the EU are yet to be determined and may not be fully understood for several years to come, or easily disentangled from the catastrophic impact that the COVID-19 global pandemic has had on the business of tourism. So studies of Brexit also lend themselves to understandings of how people understand their place in the world. As social processes, tourism and Brexit have much in common. Both are tinged with magic and can be explored in relation to what they tell us about liminality, questions of identity, representation, power, cross-cultural relations, the conditions of migrants working in European tourism destinations, ideas of freedom, uses of heritage, the role of the royal family, and the UK's relationship with the wider world, including the Commonwealth and UK's overseas territories, places often not foregrounded in the debates about Brexit. All of these subjects and more are explored in Tourism and Brexit, Travel, Borders and Identity.